Previously on Flowers for Zoe, Stories for Dennis.
What other reason do you have to not want to give them back?
Are you able to talk to your mom about this?
No, she never talks. Like anytime I try to talk to her about it, she doesn't want to talk about it.
And now, coming up on the show.
It's a gentle reminder that relapse is part of recovery. That relapse does happen sometimes.
I work so hard to gain back everything that I have. I can't even imagine to lose it.
On today's episode, we talk about stages of change, and Zoe shares her thoughts on medication and building trust with her service providers. Our discussion is not medical advice and should not be used as such. Listen as long as it feels good for you, and if you are activated by anything that we talk about, reach out and talk to someone. After today, we will be taking a short break, returning October 2. Thank you to everybody who has reached out with feedback. We value what you have to say. If you have topics that you would like to hear us discuss, or if you would like to join us on the podcast, please reach out. www.flowersforzoe.storiesfordennis.com. Okay, let's get started.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Okay, welcome to podcast number 12.
Today we're talking about stages of change. Before we jump into it, I'll talk a little bit about where did these stages of change come from. So stages of change is what's referred to as a trans-theoretical model of change. And it was developed back in the 70s by some researchers and theorists, Prochaska and Di Clemente. And Prochaska's stages of change have become a model of understanding how people make decisions about changes that they want to make. It's a model that's used in a lot of programs to help us understand where clients are at and to help us understand, how people make decisions about what they want to do and what stages of readiness look like. When this model was developed, it came out of some research on people and their habits with smoking. And this model transferred into more of a general model of just understanding how people move through change. This model of change looks at, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But because it's in a circle, it means that you can kind of go round and round. The first stage is what we call precontemplative. It basically just means that you're not thinking about a change at all. You're like, no, not me. The second is what we call contemplation, which is where you start to think about, okay, well, maybe. The third part of this cycle is where you're getting ready to change. So this is preparation stage. And it might sound like, okay, what do I need to do now? The fourth part is called change, and this is the action stage where you're kind of got that mindset, let's do this. The next stage is maintenance, and that's where people may have taken some steps, and now they're in this stage of maintaining where they're at. Some people will move into termination. It's like, I don't need these stages anymore. I'm done. It's behind me now. I've graduated. And relapse is another part of what's possible. So in this stage of change, we recognize that relapse sometimes happens. And it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get back into the cycle of change. It just means you can jump back at any time. And often when we are talking about behaviors with addiction, we often see that people move through these cycles. Sometimes people have cycled through a few times. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Stages of change.
Nice. I mean, so many questions come up right away, like pre-contemplation. That's when you're not even thinking about change. You don't even think you have a problem.
Yeah. And sometimes, other people might see a problem, but you don't see a problem.
That's a really frustrating stage to be in. At least it is for the caregiver, because sometimes you see so clearly that something has to change. Something's going to change and you want it to be good. Do you remember being in a stage like that, where you're not thinking about change? You don't even think there's a problem?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was like when I lived up north. You don't see the problem until it's too late, right? And then it's just there. I got pregnant in Barrie, and I was using, and I said, once I find out for sure, like, I'll just stop. Well, I found out and I couldn't stop using. And I was stuck, and Michael didn't know I was using. And I was like, I can't have a baby if I'm using, and I can't stop. Like, and I was stuck. And then I realized, like, that's a problem. Yeah. So then, once I realized it was a huge problem, like, I ended up going in for DNC because I just couldn't go through with it. Like, there was no way to have a baby and to be using and not be able to stop. Like, I couldn't. That's kind of when I realized, like, it's a bigger problem than I thought. If I can't stop once I'm pregnant, like, what am I going to stop for?
Your pre-contemplation stage was a while ago.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you were in a contemplation state for how long then?
I moved forward from the contemplation state because I started working on, like, what I needed to do in order to fix the problem, and I guess that would be preparation state, right?
Yeah, I think, from what you're describing, it's like, we can move in and out of these stages. So you might, at that point, when you're describing what happened, it's like, yeah, well, maybe, given everything that's going on, I want to start thinking about changing something. And you're describing feeling stuck, but also recognizing, like, I don't like what's happening right now. I kind of want off this. And at that point, moving into preparation means that you're getting ready to change. Mm-hmm. You may not know what you want to do or how you're going to do it, but you're kind of getting ready to change. You might be more receptive to getting some help, or you might be starting to think about things differently.
Well, that's kind of what happened. Like, after I started thinking like that, and I realized, like, this is more of an issue than I thought. Like, I need to change something. It did fall into the action phase because I remember my dad coming over, and I told him whatever I told him, and he ended up putting me into a detox up north. So I did have some action there. So it fell into the action stage, I guess you could say, because I did go to detox. It was fucking horrible. It was non-medical detox, and it was just, yeah, it was just fucking horrible. And then maintenance, I don't think I went through the maintenance stage because I came out and I used right away. So I went straight into the relapse, and then I guess I started the circle over again, right? Where it was pre-contemplation, and it was a cycle, right? So I don't know how many times I went through it, but there had to have been a few different times that I went through the circle. There had to have been.
So that was probably your first cycle of going through the stages of change.
Yeah. And that it's so weird because now that we're talking about it, I never seen this circle or heard of this circle, but when you were explaining it at the beginning, I feel like I'm in that maintenance stage right now. I'm maintaining, right? But then when you said relapse, I'm like, holy shit, that's the next step. Like, what the fuck? And then I read optional, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm safe, but it's still scary. Like, you think, like, you're on top of the world. You're great. You're doing good. And then to see that, that gray circle, you're like, holy shit. Like, oh my God. right? So, but
The idea of relapse scares you?
oh God, yeah. Like, because you're not thinking about it. When you're maintaining, you're not thinking about ever relapsing again. Like, you feel like you're doing great. And that's how I feel right now. Like, as much as I have these little problems in life or whatever the case is, I really feel like I'm doing so good compared to where I was. And the thought of like losing it all, that's terrifying.
It doesn't mean you're going to relapse. You don't have to
Yeah.
relapse. Many people don't. We talk about relapse because it's a gentle reminder that relapse is part of recovery. That relapse does happen sometimes. And if it does happen, it doesn't mean that you have to spiral down in the same way that you may have before. It just means that when we have little blips and we fall back or we return to familiar ways of doing things, it's not the same anymore. We may have more insight. We may be pissed off. We may be disappointed with ourselves or let down. That in itself is sometimes what gets people back into the cycle of changing that. When we talk about relapse, it's to try to take some of the fear out of it. You don't want to relapse. It's not what you have planned. And it doesn't mean that you will. But in the unlikely event that you do, all is not lost. It just means that you get right back on with the plan, right? And you may at that point not really be able to go back to pre-contemplative because you know too much, right? So you might, when somebody relapses and they've done this a few times, they may jump right back into thinking about changing. That might be a really quick stage, and then they might quickly move into, preparing or changing again.
So it's not like the 12 steps that everybody talks about. You don't have to start over from the very beginning. In this situation, you don't have to start from pre-contemplation. You can jump right into, I know my problem, I know that there's an issue, I know I gotta fix it, so we're gonna work into action now and we're just gonna make it happen. That's good. I mean, that's a good feeling, right? Because you don't have that feeling of like completely starting over again. Because that's really scary too, right? To start over from square one. That's intimidating.
I bet.
Yeah.
So where are you now? Where do you see yourself now?
I really think I'm in the maintenance right now. Like, I'm maintaining life. I'm maintaining everything at the moment. I don't see relapse in my life anymore. Of course, it's a fear for everyone because you just don't know. But like, I don't see myself having to redo this right now. You know.
So that would suggest that you're in the maintenance phase. You're still kind of new in the maintenance phase, months in, right?
Yeah.
And so you might be looking at graduation. At some point, when you feel like you've been doing maintenance long enough, you might say, "Hey, I'm done. I've graduated."
I think I'm gonna be ready for graduation once I've come down off of the um the medication that I'm on, and I can kind of put that stage behind me also. I don't know, I look at it like it's still a stepping stone of where I'm at, right? Like, would I be where I am if I wasn't maintaining in this way? Like, like the thought has crossed my mind, of course. Would I be as good as I am right now if I didn't have the medications that I'm on to maintain me? Right? So I feel like once I get that completely out of the way and I work on coming down off of my medications, and it's kind of, I can put that in my past too, I feel like not until then I'll be ready to fully feel the graduation part of the whole cycle. I want to give it till at least I come off of the prescribed medications I'm on. I don't want to have to depend on anything.
And we're talking about Cadian and methadone.
Yeah.
When I hear Zoe talk about the possibility of relapse, because we've spoken about it a few times over the last months, it just seems like such a foreign time and place. And it's such a good feeling. Getting these feelings from you, I just feel so at ease and at peace.
Yeah.
You're so into life right now.
It's the best thing I have going.
It is. You're so into it. You got your hands into every aspect of life right now. Thinking about work, you think about school, you think about kids, you think about home. A couple of times you're thinking about travel. How nice would it be to go on a vacation?
Yeah.
Maybe one day. I guess when you see someone so into life like that, it just makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So, would you say these are the things that are making it possible for you to stay in this maintenance phase? Are these the things that are motivating you? What's helping to keep you here? How come you're not relapsing?
Because I've worked so hard to gain back everything that I have. I can't even imagine to lose it. Going back to the medication, like, that's a big reason of why I'm sober right now, off of all the bullshit and everything I was doing before. But it's still a way of maintaining my current sobriety, right? Like, in a way, I'm still dependent on a drug, and that doesn't make me feel 100%, right? Like, everything in life is great, but I'm still dependent on something, and I don't want that.
Yeah, I hear you with that. Sometimes when I think about medication, and again, this is just a way of looking at it, but I think about how helpful medications are in our society. So let's just think about, people who depend on medication to manage other kinds of chronic conditions. Medications can help give us functional lives. It can help us keep our bodies working in the way that they need to. There are many, many people who depend on medications every day, whether that's to manage their blood pressure or take an insulin. Without these medications, it would be really, really difficult.
I'm so pro I'm pro medications. I think that they're a great stepping stone for people, and they're used for when they're needed. I'm just in a stage now, like, I'm questioning, do I still need it? But I'm scared to make that next step in between. So I'm so pro, like, I am pro. Like, if you need it, you go for methadone, go for Suboxone. If there's something else that can be prescribed to you by a doctor's to where you're not using this crazy shit that people are adding, whatever the fuck they're adding to it, and you could die, like, go for it. I'm just in that loop of being scared to take the next step and knowing if I still need it or if I'm maintaining, right?
So these are great questions to bring to your doctor and start that discussion about, okay, what might next steps look like? What do I need to take, and what might be an option?
Yeah.
Even without taking any steps, right? It might just be to get some information.
So, what is the next step?
I see my doctor Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah, I can see her Tuesday. Well, I can see her any Tuesday I want. I've been stuck in this little box. Every Tuesday that comes, I just go in, I get my medication, and I leave for the week. And I'll see her next week. And then next week comes, and I do the same thing. So that falls back into our other podcast about procrastination. Like, I'm procrastinating on figuring out what the next step is for me, right? I'm just maintaining. I'm comfortable, right? I'm as much as I'm thinking about it, I'm still comfortable throughout my day. And I don't want that to be different. So I think that's what's stopping me from making that next step in talking to her. Because if I do find out, like, hey, I've been on this for such and such, I don't have any pain, I don't feel bad, like, you know what I'm saying, other than regular, I slept wrong or whatever the case is, you know, I don't want her to be like, well, maybe you don't need it, Zoe. And then I'm like, fuck, maybe I don't. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's go down this much. And then I'm a bag of shit for the next week because it's too much or it's not enough, or like I don't want to be in that middle zone of just not knowing, right? It's like any other opiate, right? Like I'm still on opiates, I'm just on a legal opiate.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm still gonna go through not feeling well, I'm still gonna go through stuff like that.
We have to really be on them to say we want to taper slowly, because otherwise they're going to want to cut that pill up in the easiest way possible. Cut by 25%.
And because they're beads, it's like they'd rather just, because I'm on 40 milligrams of Cadian, it's slow release, instead of wanting to sit there and pick through beads and count them, they're just going to be like, okay, let's take 10 milligrams away because it's one pill.
Yeah, let's not let them do that.
And I don't know, and that's what's scaring me, is I don't want to feel like shit and then not be able to change that for a whole 7 days, you know?
Yeah, this is big. This is a bit. I think this is a big issue. I think it takes a lot more resource to taper down slowly, to cut by 5%, 10%, than it does to cut by 25%.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
You know, every pharmacy has a bottom line. It's plain and simple. I see it as it's black and white. And we want to go in there and say we want to taper down slowly.
To gain a relationship with your pharmacist and your doctor is so important, and have them just know everything, because the more they know, the more they're comfortable with dealing with you. Like, I love my pharmacist. I love my doctor. Like, they're great. Like, I basically put it all on the table to my doctor, and she gave me nothing but her complete trust. And you know, I am where I am because of her. Like, if not, I might have still been having to go in and drink at the pharmacy every day. But I've earned my trust with her. I smacked everything down on the table. I said, here's my file. This is where I was 5 years ago. This is where I was a year ago. This is where I was 7 months ago. And this is where I am today. Like, look at who I am. Be the judge of who I am, because I can't come in here every day. It's literally almost impossible for me to do that with the way my life is. And she turned around, and that same day I got all my carries sent home with me, because I showed her who I was. Like, it's so important to have a relationship with your doctor, and a good one at that. And if you're not comfortable with your doctor, find a new doctor that you are, because it's not going to get you or anywhere, or your doctor. It's just not going to work. If you don't click with that doctor, being on methadone or Suboxone or whatever you're on, it's not going to work. It's a drug that takes time to trust the patient and to put trust in your doctor, right? So you need a click right off the hop with your doctor, and if you don't, I would suggest changing. I had a doctor for 10 years, and he changed on me, and I changed right away. I didn't stay with him. There was a few different things that he wasn't giving me my carries. He was forgetting about certain medications, and I seen that, and I said, like, you've been a great doctor for 10 years. I said, but you're fucking up. And I changed doctors. If I've been with you for 10 years and you don't know what I take on a daily, you don't know who I am. If I'm having problems and you're not sending my script, and I'm sitting here and you're not in your office for me to contact you to be like, you didn't send my script, and I'm stuck for a few days without my script, you're not good for me. You're going to be the reason I relapse. I can't have that. So it's just really important, And then with your pharmacist, it's great because they're willing to go that extra mile. And like, I don't think I'm worried about dealing with my pharmacy about them counting out beads for me out of my medication. Like, I don't think I'm worried about them taking me down 10% instead of 25 if I spoke with them, just because they know where I was, where I'm at, and where I want to be. Like, they know that outlook that I have on my life and where I want to get to, and they're willing to do anything and everything to get me there, right? So it's good. It's almost like they're a part of the team, right? Like they're rooting, right?
Yeah, I. Oh, it's so nice to hear everything you said. So because that's what happens when you share your story with people.
Yeah.
You give them a chance to feel what you feel,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, when someone understands that, how could they not be on your team?
I walk in every Tuesday, and there's like probably like six, like there's the main pharmacist, and then there's probably all like 5 or 6 people that are kind of behind the counter doing whatever they're doing. I walk in that front door on a Tuesday, afternoon, evening, morning, it's the same people there, and they all smile and say hi. Like all of them, like they know me by name, I know them by name. Like it's just, it's it's so much more than just a pharmacy to me now. Like we didn't have such a good relationship before, but now I go in and I talk shit with him and he talks shit, and like it's
Wow,
gotten so much better now that I'm coherent going in there.
that's so good to hear because you know your dad had a hard time with.
I know. Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice to hear that you're building your community of support, your team. You're always building your team.
It benefits you so much to have a good relationship with the people that you see every day in the doctors or the pharmacy, and it just benefits you.
How was your relationship with them before 6 months ago?
I wouldn't say it was bad, but there was no relationship. Like I was just another person that's seen a doctor there, that got my medication, and they all know if you're using or not. Like they just know. Like they see it all day, every day, people coming in and out of there that have drug addictions. They know when you're using. Like, and they knew I was using when I was using, and they know I'm not now. And it's just we didn't have the relationship that we had now. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. Like I didn't stand out to them. I was just another person that came in there to dose and to see the doctor, and you know, they seen my face more so 6 months ago than they do now, and our relationship is better now. I see them once a week now, and my relationship is so much better with them than it was when I seen them every day. Put it that way.
I'll tell you, Zoe, the change wasn't just you. Your relationship with them 6 months ago was like you said, there was no relationship because they didn't understand, but they also went through a growth spurt. And that growth spurt happened when we shared your story with them. I remember. I remember it. When you start telling your story to someone, it starts off subtle, and then they're like, holy shit. Yeah, this girl needs help. She needs support, and it changes things. It wasn't just you that went through some change. You changed other people around you too.
Yeah, I think what I hear you saying is, as things began to change with Zoe, things began to change with the service providers too. They started noticing different things. Maybe they were seeing something different with you. Maybe your behavior was changing too. Everybody was kind of changing at the same time.
I think that's what it was too, is they seen, like, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or like, but speaking to certain people in the pharmacy, such as the other guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy with the glasses, like I've spoke to both of them on separate occasions, and they said, we have seen people at their worst that start to get better, that fall back down, that end up being successful, but it has never happened in less than a year. Like, I think that was the difference.
It is, and I think you should toot your own horn.
You always say that. You think that I should give myself the full hurrah.
Some people have a knack of being able to toot their own horn without looking conceited or stuck up or anything like that. I don't know how to do that.
I don't want to feel like that, and especially because we're doing this to help other people. Like, I don't want them to compare themselves to me. I don't want them to be like, well, because we all have different issues. We all have different reasoning behind why we've done things. Like, no story is the same. This is just my story and how we as a team and a family got through it. Right? So I don't want to turn around and be like, well, I got this done in this amount of time, and somebody's been struggling with this for 20 fucking years. Like, I don't want people to feel like I'm any better than them, because we all have our issues. We all have our way of dealing with them. We all have reasoning behind the things that we've done or continue to do. And that doesn't make me any better than any one of my fellow addicts out there. Like, we are in the same boat, just for different reasons.
I love that you call them fellow addicts, by the way. Yeah, I mean, everyone, I guess, has to balance that tooting your own horn and then recognizing when something great happens in life. Something really great happened here, and it's important to talk about. Yeah, I hope you talk about it all the time for the rest of your life, because it is. It's something great to talk about. Maybe you get sick of talking about it. I don't know.
No,
Have you?
honestly, I don't. I don't think I'll ever get sick and tired of talking about it.
I'm glad you came on today.
Me too.
It's really nice connecting with you. I so enjoy hearing your stories and all the information that you're sharing. I'm glad we're connected. I'm glad as a family we're more connected than ever.
I don't think we've ever been this connected before.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And thank you for helping us too. You're helping our family grow.
But this whole experience, has opened everything up for me. Like, I was very closed off before with talking about things. Like, I think even up until I came out of detox, like, a lot of the reason why I just didn't answer anybody and didn't want to talk to anybody, because it had a lot to do with my dad. Like, I didn't want to face reality of talking to Carrie or Nana or you or Uncle Daniel. I just wanted to shut it out for the time being. Like, I didn't want to talk, because if I spoke to you guys, it was like, you're my dad's sister, you're my dad's brother, that's dad's mom, that's dad's wife. Like, I just didn't want it. And it might sound horrible, but I think that was just a way that I was able to deal with that at that moment, until I was okay to deal with it a different way. Right? So it was nothing personal against anybody. It was just me shutting dad's whole side of the family out, so that I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't in my face. I wasn't talking about it. But this whole situation that has happened was such a big change, because now I talk about my feelings. I express how I feel about things, and I'm more open to talk about things, whereas before I didn't want to do that. Right? And this whole podcast and everything that has happened, and I'm just more open with everything now. And it's good to not feel like I have to carry the weight of all the fucking bullshit by myself. Like, it's a good feeling to be able to share the hardships with everybody that's in our circle or our family, or like, none of us have to deal with dad passing away, or shit going on with our kid problems alone. Like, we all have that safe spot to talk to each other about it with no judgment and just nothing but good help. And it's so much better to have what we have than to just not talk or not speak about it because it's too hard. Sharing the hardships just make everybody better, feel better. I love it.